You know, there are just some days where you want to gather up every ounce of patience you have and chuck it into an industrial dumpster, lock it, and walk away. And that is exactly how I felt on that fateful Friday when I saw a gleaming, deep maroon Tesla Model X sitting dead center in my old implement shed. My eyes started twitching. You have to understand, this isn't some paved parking lot. This is my old implement shed, an 80-year-old oak structure where I store dry hay, my antique tractor, and everything I don't want catching a stray drop of rain. And right in the middle of my working farm equipment, there it was, a 6-figure electric SUV, sporting a vanity plate that read Queen Bee, Brenda Albright, my neighbor. Brenda, the woman whose ego is roughly twice the size of her vehicle. I stood there, taking a slow, deep breath of freshly cut grass and diesel oil, trying to stop myself from dropping a bale of hay right through her sunroof. The first time Brenda did this, she gave me that fake, breathy apology, claiming it was only going to be a couple of hours, while she ran into town for a manicure. The second time, she swore her driveway was being sealed and she had literally nowhere else to go. Never mind the massive 5-car garage she has behind her house. But this time, the 5th time, she had reached an entirely new level of audacity, and you are not going to believe this. I spotted a note taped right to the heavy steel door of the shed. I peeled it off, and this is what it said, word for word. "Caleb, I'll pick it up Monday. Don't touch my car, it's new, and I don't want it getting dusty." I read it twice, blinking in disbelief. It was Friday. She had commandeered my private shed and planned to leave her fancy SUV there for an entire long weekend, like it was a reserved spot at the Ritz-Carlton. I felt a sharp ache in my jaw. I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over Brenda's contact, but then I stopped myself. I knew exactly how this call would go down. She'd answer with that high-pitched, faux apologetic oopsie tone, then she'd spin some manipulative little yarn, and I, like a fool, would grudgingly mutter, "Fine, but this is the absolute last time," and I'd be the one who lost. Not this time, folks. Not ever again. I looked at the heavy barn doors, then at the industrial-grade padlock I used to secure the tractor. An idea, a slow, sweet, almost righteous idea formed in my mind, like honey dripping from a spoon. I walked over, swung the barn doors shut with a deeply satisfying screech on the hinges. Then I secured the lock, the click, ringing out loud and clear, an absolute final period on the sentence of her entitlement. The deep maroon Tesla Model X was officially imprisoned, a captive to its owner's arrogance. I whistled an old tune, tossed my weekend bag into the back of my pickup, and hit the road. My original plan was just to go fishing and unwind at my cabin deep in the redwoods, where cell service is non-existent. But now, knowing what I had just done, that idea sounded about 10 times better. I hadn't even driven half a mile when my phone buzzed. Brenda. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call. I grinned and cranked up the radio. By the time I hit the highway, she had called 5 times. An hour later, 12 times. And by the time I finally reached the blessed silence of my lakeside cabin, my voicemail box was full, absolutely crammed with escalating messages that sounded something like this. "Hey Caleb, it's Brenda. I just noticed you locked my car in your barn. Haha, funny joke. Call me when you get this, okay? Seriously though, I need my car. Unlock the barn. Jacob Vance. I know you're ignoring me. You better get back here right now. You think this is cute? You are committing a crime. I will call the police." I took a long sip of my beer, feet propped up on the dock, watching the sunset melt over the water. I couldn't remember the last time I felt this peaceful. The whole weekend passed in pure, unadulterated bliss. No Brenda, no drama, no entitled demands. Just the sound of nature, the occasional fish biting, and the deeply satisfying knowledge that somewhere out there, Brenda Albright was losing her ever-loving mind. Monday rolled around, and I was almost sad to leave. Almost. I pulled into my driveway to find absolute chaos waiting. Brenda was standing outside the shed, pacing like a caged panther, arms flailing as she screamed into her phone. Next to her, a county cruiser sat parked on the gravel. A young, bored-looking officer, Deputy Miller leaning against the hood, arms crossed, radiating sheer exhaustion. The moment she spotted my truck, Brenda turned and charged toward me, face redder than a fire hydrant, eyes practically bulging with fury. There he is. Arrest him, she shrieked, pointing an accusing finger right at me. I blinked. For what, Brenda? For stealing your car? Deputy Miller let out a sigh, rubbing his temples. Ma'am, we already went over this. Your car is inside his shed. That's private property. He didn't steal anything. He just locked it in there. That's theft. He imprisoned it. Brenda wailed. I looked at Miller. So let me get this straight. I locked my own shed, which is on my own land, and now I'm being accused of a crime. The officer's lip twitched. He was clearly fighting a losing battle with a smile. I pulled out my phone and opened my security footage app. I have video proof she parked there without permission. Also, here's her note. I handed over the crumpled paper. Miller took one look at it and exhaled sharply through his nose. Ma'am, this explicitly proves you left your car here voluntarily. It says you'd pick it up Monday. I crossed my arms. Today is Monday. I did exactly what she said. I didn't touch her car. Brenda's face cycled through 6 shades of rage before settling on self-righteous fury. This is harassment. I'll sue! Go ahead, I smirked. Trespassing laws are pretty clear in Hickory Creek Township. Brenda let out a strangled noise, turned on her heel, and stormed toward the shed, yanking on the padlock. Unlock it now. I took my sweet time retrieving the key with a casual hum. I made sure to stretch, adjust my hat, and take a long, deliberate sip of my coffee before finally unlocking the padlock and swinging the doors open. The moment they parted, Brenda dove for her car, yanking open the driver's door, only to be met with an immediate, blood-curdling shriek that echoed across the valley. A family of raccoons had taken up residence over the weekend. One of them, a fat, grumpy-looking specimen, was nestled in the passenger seat. It hissed at the sudden invasion of light. Brenda fell backward into a pile of hay, flailing like an upturned turtle. I lost it. I started laughing uncontrollably, doubling over with my hands on my knees. Deputy Miller officially lost the battle and let out a full, choked snort of amusement. Brenda scrambled to her feet, covered in hay and indignity. You will pay for this. I wiped away a tear. Nee, I think we're even. She stomped into her car, slammed the door, and then immediately screamed again. She threw herself back out, holding up her hands, which were now covered in muddy paw prints, and what looked suspiciously like chewed-up granola bar crumbs. They ruined my interior. I peered inside and whistled. The raccoons had clearly made themselves at home. There were muddy prints on the white seats, torn-up napkins everywhere, and a distinct musky smell that suggested the floorboard had possibly been used as a temporary bathroom. Yikes, I said, shaking my head. Gonna need more than an air freshener for that. Brenda was shaking with rage. You think this is funny? I tilted my head. A little bit? Yeah. She let out an incoherent screech, spun around, and stormed back toward her car. I'm taking this to court. You'll regret this. I watched her speed off, still chuckling as Deputy Miller shook his head. I've been a cop for 15 years, the man said. That might be the funniest thing I've ever seen. She had it coming, I said. Miller clapped me on the back. Well, she might try to file a complaint, but I doubt it'll go anywhere. You technically did nothing wrong, I nodded. Good to know. As the officer drove off, I turned back toward my shed, finally able to enjoy the peaceful morning again. For the first time in a long time, there was no sign of Brenda, and that, more than anything, made this the best Monday I'd had in years. The escalation. The $75,000 lawsuit. I had barely settled back into my routine when, 2 days later, I received an official-looking letter in the mail. It was from a law office. Brenda had actually followed through. She was suing me. She was demanding $75,000 in compensation for emotional distress, unlawful imprisonment of her vehicle, and damages to personal property. I burst out laughing. 75 grand. I tossed the letter onto the kitchen table and poured myself another cup of coffee. I wasn't a legal expert, but I knew absolute nonsense when I saw it. Still, I decided to show up to the hearing, just for the entertainment value. The courthouse was small, typical for our county seat. When I arrived, I spotted Brenda standing outside, arms crossed, looking incredibly smug. She was dressed like she was about to give a press conference. her designer suit unnecessarily dramatic for such a ridiculous case. "You finally came to your senses?" She sneered as I walked past. I chuckled. "I wouldn't miss this show for the world, Brenda." Inside, the judge took his seat, looking profoundly annoyed before the case even started. Brenda wasted no time launching into her exaggerated sob story. "Your Honor, I have suffered severe trauma because of this man's actions," she began, practically choking on the word trauma. "Not only did he imprison my car, but he intentionally trapped wild, disease-ridden animals inside to cause destruction. I have had nightmares. I have suffered great emotional damage, and my car is ruined beyond repair." I had to bite the inside of my cheek until it bled to keep from howling with laughter. The judge looked at Brenda over the rim of his glasses. "Ms. Albright, do you have evidence that Mr. Vance placed the animals inside your car?" Brenda faltered for a moment, then quickly regained her composure. "The circumstances make it obvious. He locked the barn knowing my car was inside. The raccoons wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for him." The judge turned to me. "Mr. Vance, do you have any evidence to support your side?" I pulled out my phone and played the security footage from my shed. The judge leaned forward, watching as the video clearly showed Brenda parking her car, leaving the note, and walking away. Then came the best part. The video caught the exact moment the raccoons, attracted by the smell of the snacks she'd left inside, crawled right through the open window she'd forgotten to roll up, sniffing around before making themselves at home. Brenda's face paled as she watched the screen. The judge sat back in his chair, utterly unimpressed. "Ms. Albright, I see no foul play here. Mr. Vance did not steal or damage your vehicle. In fact, this footage proves that the raccoons entered of their own accord." Brenda's jaw tightened. But he still locked the shed." The judge sighed, which he had every right to do. "It's his property." Brenda's face twisted into a scowl. "This is ridiculous. He knew it would inconvenience me." The judge gave her a long, tired look. "You trespassed, Ms. Albright. If anything, you're the one who should be facing legal consequences." Brenda opened her mouth to argue, but before she could, the door to the courtroom swung open. Everyone turned as a man stepped inside. Hugh Albright, Brenda's husband. His face was unreadable as he walked toward the judge. "I'd like to say something," he announced. Brenda froze. "Hugh, what are you doing here?" Hugh ignored her, handing a folder to the judge. "I have some information that might be relevant to this case." The judge opened the folder and skimmed through the pages. I watched as Brenda's smug expression melted into sheer panic. Hugh crossed his arms. "Your Honor, Brenda doesn't own that car." "I do." The courtroom fell silent. Brenda's mouth opened, but no words came out. "She took my SUV without permission," Hugh continued, his voice calm and exhausted. "And she's been doing stuff like this for years. Entitlement, boundary pushing, lying. This is just another example. I thought it was time someone finally put a stop to it. I filed for divorce this morning." "You traitor," Brenda hissed. Hugh just shrugged. "I'm just tired of cleaning up your messes, Brenda." The judge nodded slowly, setting the folder aside. "Well, that certainly changes things." The next few minutes were a blur of legal formalities, but when the gavel finally struck, the case was dismissed. Kerren's ridiculous lawsuit had been thrown out completely. She sat there in stunned silence as the realization sank in. I got up, tipping my hat at her. "Good luck with that emotional distress, Brenda." She sputtered as I walked away, but nothing she said mattered anymore. The case was dead, and her reputation was utterly ruined. Hugh caught up with me outside. "You handled that well," he said. I chuckled. "Didn't have to do much. She did all the work herself." Hugh sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I think I've finally had enough. I told you I filed for divorce this morning." "Probably for the best," I said. Hugh nodded. "She's all yours now, Caleb," I stiffened. "No thanks." We both laughed, shaking hands before parting ways. A week later, the town was buzzing with the aftermath. Brenda had become a walking cautionary tale. Neighbors wouldn't tolerate her antics, and her usual tricks stopped working. And then came the final blow. One morning, as she was heading out, a tow truck pulled into her driveway. Brenda screamed as they hooked up her Tesla Model X. Hugh hadn't just divorced her. He had reclaimed his car, too. I sat on my porch watching the scene unfold with a satisfied grin. For the first time in years, my shed stayed empty. No Brenda, no SUV. Just peace and quiet at last. So there it is. I locked the door, went away for the weekend, and the universe figured out the rest. But I want to know what you think. Did I go too far? Was locking up that car a justified act of righteous revenge for blatant trespassing, or did I sink to her level? And honestly, what would your reaction be if you found a family of raccoons asleep in your new car? Let me know in the comments below. Share your craziest neighbor story. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you love a story of sweet, sweet justice being served. Thanks for watching.